Okay, let's try this again. So, I don't even know if people will get notification of this one. So I am going to give it a little bit of time. Hopefully, all those people that were already on will join me over here on this live. So, all right, hello. I hope I get everybody back. So this is the live that I intended to do earlier. Okay. Hi, Candace. Thank you for letting me know. It's working now on this new one. I wasn't seeing anything. Hello. All right. Yay. Welcome, everybody. Please say hello. I'd love to know who I'm talking to. I imagine that we're all sitting together in this space, and as I look at the camera, I'm imagining you all sitting out there, and we're all together. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So continue to say hello as you come in. Great. Thanks, Denise. Okay, so if you didn't hear me or catch it on the other one, today I am answering your questions about all things related to this healing journey. And part of that is specifically related to Journey to Wholeness, but you don't have to be in the course to ask questions. You don't have to be thinking about joining the course to ask your questions. But I'm combining both of those pieces. So welcome and thank you for joining me. Okay, so if you have questions as I go through, please share them, comment, ask the questions that you have. So I have a list of some of the questions that I tend to get from people at different times when they're considering joining Journey to Wholeness. So if you've just discovered me or haven't paid any attention to anything that I've been doing lately, I'm going to share a little bit for those who may not know much about Journey to Wholeness. I'm going to share a little bit about that so you'll know what I'm referring to as I talk about the rest and answer questions. So again, as you come on, hello, Benji. Hi, Amanda, Kathleen, Sharia, Phone Mom. I think I know your name, but I'm not remembering right now what your actual name is. So please, if you've got questions, share them in the chat and I will answer. So Journey to Wholeness is a course that I created about a couple of years ago, really, for survivors of sexual abuse specifically. And as I thought about what can I put into a course, because obviously it cannot be exhaustive, it cannot be everything that you need to know, but what can I create that will give people a really good foundation, a good understanding for their healing? And Journey to Wholeness is what I ended up creating. And so Journey to Wholeness has 6 lessons or modules that people go through. And it's really meant for people to work through on their own. So they can purchase the course and do the lessons and gain a lot of understanding and experience to help them in their healing. But I really enjoy the live component. And I also have heard from people that the live component takes the ability to integrate the material to a whole different level. So this time around for this fall, I am creating a private Facebook group for those who have joined Journey to Wholeness at any point to come in and share this experience together, where I will be coming in and doing live Q&As for each of the lessons, as well as sharing prompts and just different kinds of things inside the group to help connect and facilitate healing. So that's what it is. Some of the concerns or questions that people have are really common. I don't think that I've ever heard a question that somebody else also hasn't asked in some way or another. So I want to talk a little bit about some of those so that I can hopefully alleviate any concerns or fears that you may have about joining Journey to Wholeness. So again, if you've got questions or comments, thoughts that you'd like to share, please feel free. So Journey to Wholeness is 6 different lessons. And while it's not designed to go really deep or really detail oriented, or it's not designed to have you revisit any of the trauma or anything like that, it is, it covers a lot of ground. Um, I think some of the fundamental pieces that are necessary for healing. And so, what a lot of people struggle with or fear is that it's going to be too much and they won't be able to keep up with it. So, I think that that's a fairly natural fear for a lot of people around a lot of different things. um, but of course, with this, it definitely makes sense. And what I'd like to say is, well, each lesson kind of builds on the one before it. You don't have to do them in order. And I think that even if for whatever reason you don't get through the lessons each time, you will gain a lot from just being in the group itself. So the lessons include a video. It's usually, I think, anywhere from like 10 to 20 minutes. I don't remember exactly, 10 to 30 minutes maybe. But there's a video that's more about, like, similar to the videos that you've seen me do here on YouTube, where I talk about that week's topic. And then there's a meditation. And the meditation is, you don't necessarily have to sit in lotus pose with your eyes closed or whatever. It's not like that. It's just an audio recording that you can actually download and listen. And when we listen, we can often take in things at a different level. And so the video is kind of about teaching. The meditation is about internalizing. It's about breaking through some of those barriers that we have against being able to see the truth of who we are. And what I mean by the truth of who we are, I mean the reality of the goodness within you. So the meditations are kind of designed for that, to help you begin to see and believe in yourself in a different way. And then there are journal prompts for each lesson as well. And the journal prompts work to bring both of those other pieces together and help you go a little bit deeper, bringing in the conscious and subconscious aspects of the wounding and the healing. And some people do much better with the visual piece, and that's okay. Some people do much better with listening, and you just want the meditation. And even if you just do one of the pieces, you're still going to gain a lot, especially if you're participating in the Facebook group. And for some people, the journaling is where they feel like they can connect the most. But they're designed to work together so that you can internalize and integrate the material on a deeper level. And the more that you participate, the more you will get out of it. The more you revisit the lessons, the more you will get out of it. So you don't have to keep up with them. So the lessons come out every 2 weeks. It's perfectly okay if we are in week 6 and you haven't done anything yet and you want to start where we are. Or if you want to start from the beginning, because in the Facebook group, of course, you'll have access to all the stuff that's happened before, and all of the videos from the Q&As and any other live videos that I happen to do or share will also be available to you to watch and to learn from. And one of the things that I heard from people, actually in both times that I had a live component at all, is that people went back and listened to the live Q&As or the live group piece that we did and gained even weeks or months later in that part. So you don't have to keep up with it necessarily in order to gain from it. And you will have access to all of the lessons as long as I'm continuing to do this work. As long as I have a website, you'll have access, unless there's some unforeseen technological issue or something like that that I have no control over. But you will have lifetime access to this. So you'll be able to revisit it. You'll be able to complete it at your own time, at your own pace. So that's one of the questions. So I'm just going to check and see if I have anything here. Hi, Jody. Absolutely. So somebody's asking about talking more about men and male children being survivors of sexual abuse. It is absolutely something that is not talked about enough. And generally, when I'm speaking, I do tend to speak more generally. There are more women that listen to me, there are more women who participate, but nearly everything that I am talking about is true for both men and women. But obviously, there are some differences, and men tend to have their some specific things that are more relevant for them than women, and women have some things that are more relevant for them as well, but that is talked about a little bit more. So I will definitely keep that in mind, and I would actually love to do a group for just men. If there's ever enough interest, I would be happy to do a group for just men. So hi, Lupe. Hi, Terry. Um, so another question that I get from people is a fear or a concern of not being sure that they want to share like a lot of details, or if they want to if like that they're not that they are not really sure, sorry, of how open they want to be in like the Facebook group. And first of all, this is a very normal fear. Even people that have done groups before can be really nervous about doing a new group or interacting with new people. So first of all, that's a very normal fear. But the other piece is that there are two things. One, you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share. It is true that the more that you're active, the more you will get out of it. However, you will still gain from the group and just seeing other things, because you'll see yourself in other people's comments and questions and concerns and all of that. So you'll still gain from it for sure. And also, once it starts and you start kind of settling in, and those new or those feelings of the newness or the uncertainty begin to settle a little bit, most people who feel pretty adamant that they're not going to share anything sometimes end up being people that share quite a bit, because you realize that those initial fears that you have are not fears that actually stick with you, that they're fears more of the unknown than they are fears based in what is really likely to happen. So that's helpful, I think, to keep in mind. And you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share. I will be prompting you. I will be asking. You may share something and I may ask some additional questions about it. And you don't have to answer them. If I'm asking more questions or asking you to go a little bit deeper or expanding a little bit, it's never to put you on the spot or to make you feel bad in any way. It's to help you potentially get to something that's a little bit deeper in your own experience or understanding. But you never have to share anything that you don't want to share, ever, at all. What if it's too overwhelming? And this is something I kind of addressed initially. So, like I said, the lessons are not necessarily designed to take people into really difficult or deep places. However, because of the vulnerability, depending on where you are in this healing, depending on where you are in your life and what kind of stress you're under or what kind of support you have or don't have, it's all going to contribute to how vulnerable you feel. And the more vulnerable you feel, the more struggle there tends to be, the more overwhelming you can feel, the more fearful you can feel. So all of those things play into it. But what I also know to be true is that if you can recognize that and this is true for any group or any healing aspect, if you can recognize that you're feeling overwhelmed, and instead of doing what we would naturally do as a protective mechanism, which is to pull back in some way, if you recognize that you're feeling vulnerable or feeling overwhelmed, and instead of pulling back, you lean into that And that's one of the reasons why I think the group is helpful. But you lean into that by maybe coming into the group and acknowledging that you're feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you reach out to somebody in your personal life and just talk about the feeling overwhelmed, or that these feelings are coming up, or that your fears are coming up, or whatever it is. But when you're feeling kind of overwhelmed and you can share that in a supportive environment, there's a lot of healing, actual healing, that happens just in that. So we can take that experience of feeling overwhelmed and pull back and do what we've always done, which feeds the idea that it's too much, that you'll never be able to do it, or whatever other things you may say to yourself. Or you can acknowledge within yourself and to somebody else you're feeling overwhelmed. You can get support when you're feeling overwhelmed, instead of withdrawing and maybe isolating, maybe even punishing yourself or degrading yourself because you're feeling overwhelmed and you shouldn't be feeling overwhelmed. So really, there is a lot of healing that can happen in that. And while the lessons are not designed to take you particularly really deep or get you into a lot of details or anything like that, it is vulnerable, absolutely vulnerable. For many people, taking this step, even without the group piece, is kind of like jumping off a cliff in a lot of ways. Even if it's something you're really wanting to do, it can feel scary. The idea of participating in a group and sharing this kind of stuff obviously is going to feel even scarier. But when we can push through those things in a supportive and safe environment, an appropriately healthy environment, the healing that happens in that by itself, so not even what happens on the other side of that, but just in pushing through that vulnerability and allowing yourself to be supported and heard and seen, that is so much of the healing that actually happens, and why I'm such a proponent of some sort of group process as we heal around anything, really. I don't care what it is, divorce even. Having a group aspect is a tremendous peace experience for healing overall. Yes, Amanda says it's a cathartic experience to share and to be seen. Absolutely. It is. And in part of the reason that it is, and again, going back to just the group or even therapy kind of in general, but when we can share from a vulnerable place and be accepted in that vulnerability, we get to recognize that we are okay, that we are worthy, that we matter, that being vulnerable or struggling isn't something to hide and be ashamed of, but it's something that when we share it with a healthy person or in a healthy place, allows us to experience a level of connection that we really can't experience in any other place if we're not willing to be vulnerable. And that's what group does. And that's why you've been hearing me talk so much about Journey to Wholeness over the last month or so, because I really don't know if I'm going to do this live component again, at least not at this price point. Because I know how important the live piece is. So I want people to be able to experience it. If you've had an inkling that you might want to do this, now is the time. It's going to be 3 months of working through this material together. And of course, the group will stay open beyond that, I'm sure. But at least a good 3 months of us being together and me coming in and supporting you and doing the lives, answering your questions and supporting you on this journey. So deep, Shreya. I'm not sure what it was that felt so deep, but hopefully in a good way. I always feel overwhelmed and have no concentration. I've seen therapists for 2.5 years and have trouble talking to him. I am 61 and want to have peace at my age. I want that for you too. I truly do. Anybody at any age, but there's something about it seems to happen around the age of 40, I think, and of course, just kind of exponentially, I think for some people can feel even more significant, but people feeling like it's too late or like you've wasted too much of your life and what's the point now or whatever. And it is never too late. I have had clients who in their 60s and even in their 70s are just beginning their healing process. And it makes me emotional to think about it, because it's never too late and you deserve it. You absolutely deserve to heal. Um, there's different reasons why we might struggle with talking with a therapist or sharing things with a therapist. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the therapist or even the quality of the relationship necessarily. Um, but I will say that, of course, in the beginning, it's going to be difficult to share some things. And sometimes, even a few years in, it can be difficult to share some things. Um, but it is important, no matter who you're healing with, how you're healing, or whatever. It is really, really important that even if you aren't completely sharing everything that's coming up for you, that you know that you could, that you feel safe enough that you have a certain level of trusting that you really likely wouldn't be judged, that you wouldn't be told that you have to go see somebody else. And that's a big fear for a lot of people. Um, and that you feel like you're not going to be shamed. Um, and part of that comes from how have you felt in the relationship already. So it kind of makes me a little sad that 2.5 years in that you're still having some difficulty talking about stuff. And maybe it's just certain things, I don't know, or maybe it's more generally. But I would love for you to feel that there is a space for you to be yourself, to be open, and to have the support that you deserve. And I'm saying that to everybody out there who's listening to this, um, wherever you are in this healing. I think that that's really important. Hi, Pam. Peace, yes. So some people talking about craving peace. And, when I talk about healing, I talk about Journey to Freedom. And that's my kind of signature program, my one-on-one work. And it's Journey to Freedom for a reason, because it is about peace. It's about letting go of all the things that we hold on to, all the things, the fears, the doubts, the unworthiness, the shame, the fear of the future, the regret of the past, the weight that we carry around throughout our lives. And healing really is about being able to release that and feel the lightness, the peace, and that freedom. And I do believe that it's possible for everybody. Yes, it can be more difficult for some people depending on their circumstances. And it's not even the circumstances of their abuse specifically, it's more about their current circumstances much of the time. It's often more about how much you're struggling or what that struggle looks like, um, and the support that you have around it. Because if you're really struggling and you don't have support, it's pretty difficult to heal. If you're really struggling and you've got a lot of really stressful things going on in your life and you're trying to heal, it's going to be really difficult to heal. Doesn't mean you can't. And through the healing process, you may be able to work through some of that other stuff or delegate or not feel so stressed out about some of those things. So it doesn't mean that all that has to go away before you can heal. But with all of that going on, it definitely complicates the healing process. But it still is possible. It just can be more challenging if those things tend to be present. hard to stay connected, and speaking on being vulnerable. That's really interesting, and I think that that's true for a lot of people because the idea of vulnerability, there are actually people that I've known that when I say vulnerable to them, like they cringe almost shut down in a way or kind of disconnect because the idea of vulnerability or being vulnerable or even feeling vulnerable, survival can kick in because it feels very uncomfortable. It feels scary. It feels risky. You become on high alert to not be hurt. But in that, you're not necessarily consciously aware of all of that, but in that, the survival kicks in, the defense mechanism kicks in, the survival piece kicks in to pull you back so that you don't feel vulnerable. And in this, actually, in Journey to Wholeness, there's a whole section on vulnerability. Maybe I shouldn't say that, although I think I have it in the description. But there's a section where we dive into vulnerability a little bit later on. Because it is such an important and powerful piece in this journey. But you're not alone in that. It really is a significant piece for a lot of people. Thank you. I'm not sure if this is Mr. Caskell, but I'm so glad that you're here. And I love hearing from men who watch the videos, who connect with me, whether that's email or a comment here on YouTube or whatever it is. I'm really glad to know that men are listening, that men are searching for information and support and are taking the opportunity to do the healing that they desperately need to do. It's not easy for women either, but women, like people have always known that this happens to women. Even if they were blamed for it, it's still been very well known that it happens to women. But it really hasn't been that long that people, even professionals in a lot of ways, have really started talking about the truth of male survivors. Um, and it is important because the more that professionals talk about it, the more that men are willing to talk about it, the more men will continue to talk about it. Additional men will talk about it, and more healing will happen. So, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. And I so appreciate your courage and being able to share your truth here with all of us. It is never too late. Oh, I love that you guys are sharing your age, and that where you are in this healing process. I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, yeah, Lupe, I'm so glad that you shared that. Went from finally getting to talk a little to my therapist to now shutting myself down and her out after a bad loss a few weeks ago. Tamia, thank you for sharing this. So what you shared here is a pretty common experience. Now, the details obviously might be a little bit different, but this experience is kind of actually what I was just talking about in terms of vulnerability. Because when there's a stressful or difficult experience that happens, even if it's not at all related to abuse or anything, you feel vulnerable. And I don't know, I don't think you say here. So you don't say whether or not you actually shared the bad loss with your therapist or not, but it almost doesn't matter in terms of what I'm about to say. But that can leave you feeling really vulnerable. And when we feel vulnerable, that protective piece kicks in, so we tend to pull back. So it's really important when we have that desire to pull back, and maybe we don't recognize it consciously. Maybe we're not even aware that we're pulling back necessarily. But if you recognize, oh, I haven't talked to anybody for a while, or I haven't shared this for a while, or I haven't seen my therapist for a while, or I've been really struggling a lot lately, or whatever it is, if you recognize that maybe you've pulled back a little bit, being very intentional, it's not going to feel good. You may not want to do it, but being very intentional about reconnecting. That's so important. And again, There's healing that happens just in doing that. So obviously there's more healing that will happen after you've done that, but just in recognizing and then making the decision, that by itself is healing. It really is. And when you think about how many opportunities you have for those moments, that's where a lot of this healing happens. And also part of the reason why healing takes so much time, because we need to have experiences, moments to have those kinds of experiences where we heal in that moment. The learning, the understanding, the processing, obviously, all of that is important for healing. But those moments that we choose something different are such an important piece, such a necessary piece in our overall healing. Um, Thank you for your question, Terry. Is healing a perpetual journey or just the beginning of a new life journey? Being healed, wondered what it means by being healed. Is it an end or a beginning? This is a great question. Um, so I think that one of the things that I talk about is that we all struggle, that to be human means that we will struggle. And so throughout our lives, even when we feel like we're on the other side of healing, and this is true for me, throughout our lives, life happens, right? Life throws curveballs, life is hard, life is stressful, and life can be incredibly painful at times, even in our adult lives. The difference is, so I think that healing is not necessarily completely separate, but we all have healing that we need to do. Maybe it's something really significant like childhood abuse, and maybe it's just life. Things that have wounded us that we're not necessarily aware have wounded us. Dysfunction, really stressful kind of life events that left a mark. So there's healing that happens, and that's very intentional, specific work that we do. But when we're kind of on the other side of healing, as I refer to it, when we are there, it means that we believe in our worthiness, first and foremost. It doesn't mean that we don't have doubts on occasion, because that will creep in depending on how vulnerable we are, how much stress we're under, what kind of life events we end up experiencing later in life. But we feel grounded in the belief that we are worthy. So that's one difference. But the other difference is, and this is the thing that we might notice a little bit more, is that as things happen in life, because they will happen, we may still kind of react to it. We might feel similar to maybe how we had felt about other things in our life previous to healing, like really reacting strongly to something or feeling hurt by something or whatever. We may still have a reaction to that because that has been so deeply ingrained. But when we are on the other side of healing, we're aware that it's happening. And when it happens, because we're aware that it's happening, it doesn't take us to the depth of pain or discomfort or reactive behavior or depression or suicidality or shame or whatever it is. We don't get there. But we still might find that we're struggling a little bit, but we're more aware of what's happening. And in that awareness, we do things to help get us out of it. And sometimes just the awareness of what's happening is enough. Sometimes it's a little bit more that we have to do, that we have to remind ourselves of. We might have to make a specific intentional effort to connect with people. This is one of the things that I talk about at times too, that with healing, with just being a human, that there may be times when kind of we're on the other side of healing that we go back to therapy. Maybe it's a couple years later, maybe it's 20 years later. But when life happens and you're struggling with something, and there are all different kinds of things that could be, that you recognize, oh, something's going on here. And I've talked about this many times, that I ended up doing that back in 2013, I think. I had been on the other side of healing for a long time, but I went back because I kept reacting to something in a way that I knew there was something else going on there. So I went back to therapy and I was able to uncover what it was pretty quickly and then was able to work through that. So we heal in a way that we believe something different about ourselves. We feel that peace. We feel the freedom. We no longer are carrying the weight and the shame and the unworthiness of everything that we had been carrying. But as humans, we keep learning, we keep practicing, we keep struggling because to be human means that we will struggle, but it doesn't have the impact that it did. We get out of it much more quickly. We're aware of what's going on. And it's not so much all the pain that's intertwined from the past that's creating the feeling now. It's more just kind of an automatic reaction because maybe we're feeling a little more vulnerable or stressed out or whatever. But the awareness, because it doesn't take us as deep as quickly, we have the ability to be more aware of what's going on. So I hope that makes sense. If not, you can let me know and I'll try to clarify. But there is healing, and I think that we get to a point, and I refer to it as on the other side of healing. So there's that. And then life means that we'll always struggle and we'll always need support, but the depth of struggle is nowhere near. It's like going out for a leisurely little dog paddle instead of going into a hurricane force winds into the depths of something that you have no idea what you're getting into and you can't get out. That's kind of the difference of what it feels like. I feel like the abusers took 40 plus years of my life. Yes. They affected your life. While I understand the idea of taking your life, like they took your life, they've absolutely greatly impacted your life. They've made you believe things about yourself that are absolutely not true. They've kept you from believing in your dreams. And it is time. It is time for you to find that healing and for you to experience that peace. And that if you've watched the video that I did on what it's the experience of healing and reaching the summit, and I talk about that in Journey to Wholeness as well, but being able to feel that, and you deserve that, and it is time for you to have that. And I hope that you're doing whatever it is that you can do to do that, and whether it's working with a therapist or if you want to join Journey to Wholeness, it would be great to have you. Okay, Tamia, so she knows about the loss, and I'm sorry for the loss of your child. That's such a difficult loss, and there's so much beyond just the grief, or I say just beyond the grief around that specific loss. It can trigger so much other loss in your life. So I hope, please go back and talk about it. Thank you, Benji. And I'm glad that you're here, and I appreciate your sharing and your commenting and your openness as well. It's so important to be able to stand in the truth of who we are and our experiences and what we think and what we feel, whatever that might look like. And I'm very glad to have you here. Coming up on a year in therapy, and no, you're being done. But are there signs that I and my therapist will see that sort of point at the time when regular sessions will wind down? So this is a great question, and I think that something that a lot of people, I think really probably everybody kind of wonder about. And sometimes therapists talk about it and sometimes they don't. I think probably the most significant thing that you might pay attention to in terms of like when you might start to wind down or whatever, is kind of what I talked about. I don't know when you wrote this comment, it doesn't give me a time frame. But kind of what I was talking about just a few moments ago in regards to healing and then what happens after. So if you recognize that, certainly if you've been having flashbacks or unhealthy coping mechanisms, if any of those things are still happening, then certainly there's a lot more work to do before you're ready to wind down. But if you are able to think about and talk about what happened and do that from a very open place, not a denial place or an avoidance place, or minimizing place. But if you're able to do that from a place of openness and being able to connect to all of that reality, and it doesn't leave you feeling badly in some way, it doesn't cause nightmares or heart palpitations or any of that kind of stuff, then that's a good sign as well. The other thing is, how do you react to stuff? Or in your everyday life, do you find that you react strongly to different kinds of situations? Do you find yourself feeling badly easily? Do you get triggered? Do you feel intense emotions when certain things happen? Do you take things personally? Do you catastrophize? Do you judge yourself? Like any of those kinds of things um, are definitely a sign that there's a lot more work to do. Uh, do you go after the things that you want, or do you hold back? Do you speak your mind in a healthy way, or do you hold back out of fear in some aspect? Not that that's the exhaustive list of everything, but those are some maybe more obvious things that you can point to. One of the things that I've often done with clients, kind of as we recognize that we're in a place to wind down, is we'll often go to like every other week, or every third week, so that because when you just decide to end, you can notice that things start coming up again, and there are a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not necessarily going to talk about that right now. But to actually kind of wind down, so you have space in between sessions to kind of notice what's coming up, any fears around stopping, so you can see how you manage the difficult things that come up in life. And if all of that's going well, then it's usually a good sign that you might be ready to stop. And then again, if something comes up, you can always return later. And that's helpful to keep in mind too, because a lot of people, I think, have a fear that once they stop, then they're never going to be able to go back and see that person. And hopefully your therapist is talking to you about that. But unless your therapist is no longer there or doing therapy, I can't imagine a situation where you wouldn't be able to go back to that therapist. Jody, I am sorry for your loss as well. Thank you for connecting with Tamia around that. Not that you want other people to ever feel the pain that you feel, but the reality is that it's nice to know that we're not alone. So thank you for connecting with her around that. A friend sees that you've pulled back. Sometimes we don't notice those things in ourselves, and somebody else will notice it. Sometimes they don't say anything, but they will notice that there's been kind of a shift, and maybe they can't even pinpoint exactly what it is, but the energy feels a little bit different. So I'm glad that your friend actually acknowledged that to you. I'm waiting for the hurricane. Yeah. Literally or figuratively. Like that's what it can feel like, right? All that, like trying to prepare yourself and the uncertainty of what's going to happen. And that really doesn't feel good for anybody. Um, really struggling with worthiness. So you're seeing a new therapist for 3 months. Good, good. One of the things about worthiness and healing is that, first of all, I've never met a survivor that doesn't struggle with worthiness, even if they're not consciously aware that they struggle with it. Um, and I can say that because it ends up coming out. I'm not just projecting that onto them. We end up recognizing that, yes, there is worthiness or unworthiness issues there. Um, the thing about being able to change our belief from being unworthy to believing in our worthiness. That can only happen, like literally, that can only happen in the context of connecting. It is the only way that it can happen. And that's one of the things that makes healing such a struggle, because our protective being wants to keep us safe from being hurt again, which of course makes sense and is a logical thing to do, right? Because you've been hurt by people. So why would you ever want to put yourself in that situation again? But when we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable and connect and share the truth of our experiences and what we think and what we feel or whatever, when we don't do that, then the belief of being unworthy for thinking, feeling, experiencing just continues to be reinforced over and over again. When we can begin to share and connect with others, we then begin to see that who we are, what we've experienced, what we think, feel, and do is acceptable. That we can be accepted, not despite any of those things, but often because of those things. And I did a video not too long ago on that as well. But we can't do that if we're not willing to be vulnerable. We can't do that if we're not willing to allow ourselves to connect to other people. And that's the struggle, because everything in us, for the most part, says, no, 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 no. Oh, hell no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to share that with that person. You can't trust that person. Who do you think you're kidding? Right? And that served its purpose. There was a reason that that happened. There's a reason that we develop those ways of coping. And they're not bad. And there's certainly nothing to be ashamed of. They served a purpose, and they served you well, especially in your childhood, or maybe more specifically in your childhood. But healing is about, through the healing process, we recognize that we no longer need those ways of coping, that we can cope in different, healthier ways, in ways that allow us to stay connected, which not only heals, but really feels so much better. One of the things that I think about often, and when I'm thinking, if I think about people who are afraid to do the work of healing, and it sometimes makes me emotional because I know what that pain feels like, is everything that you shut yourself off from. And this is true even from participating in a group, because you're protecting yourself, which again makes sense. But in that place of protection, you don't get to experience support, like deep support, trusting support. You don't get to experience acceptance, like felt acceptance, the sense of relief when you've shared something that you've always thought somebody would judge you for or look at you weirdly for. To be accepted when you share that in a way that is supportive or even loving, non-judgmental. You feel that in your being. And I know the difference between what it feels like to not experience that and what it feels like to experience that. And I so desperately want all of you to feel that too. And that's why I talk about healing. That's why I push and encourage people to do the work, to talk, to share, to connect when it's the last thing you want to do. Because if you can make yourself do it, if you can share with another person, with a therapist, with other people in a group setting, the healing that you experience is on a cellular level. It changes the energy in your being. And that is part of the peace, because your cells are not constantly in fight or flight mode, preparing for the next dangerous thing, the fears of being hurt again. When you feel that sense of connection and relief in feeling understood and being seen, it changes literally the energy in your cells and the way that it moves through your body. Instead of being like a pinball machine and just moving just randomly all over the place, not having any purpose or flow, when you felt that in your being, it's no longer like a pinball machine. It's just this beautiful flowing body of water that smooths and soothes everything around it, nourishes. Wow. I never really don't think I've ever said that before. But that's really that's the difference. And if you imagine like the energy in your body when you're not feeling good, it is like that. Like it literally is like that, just everything, right? Your thoughts are going from one thing to the next, and the fears and all the worry and all of that is just all over the place. And then on the other side is just this beautiful flowing experience. I'm going to have to remember this analogy. uh, let's see. So, going back to Amanda's thing about worthiness, being connected, feeling supported is the best way to be able to move through worthiness. Or, no, that I didn't say that correctly, is the best way to be able to begin to feel, believe in, and trust in your worthiness. Yes, we cannot fix it all. And that is one of the difficulties that a lot of people have, especially kind of early in their healing process, is like, I want to learn everything that I possibly can. Tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. I want to heal. And unfortunately, it doesn't quite work that way. Yes, I'm grateful for that too, Lupe. Um, I'm glad you're surprising yourself, Amanda. And isn't that kind of fun in a way to, as you move through this process, to have that awareness that things are different, that you're feeling different, that you're doing things differently. That's healing itself as well. Having that awareness, that recognition, you feel that in your body, right? That is healing. Just that awareness is actually quite healing. Yeah, the push and pull in this healing process is challenging. It is incredibly challenging. And I think definitely one of the things that, which is part of the reason why it's important to be able to work with somebody who really understands all of this, because if you're just trying to do it by yourself, or you're doing it with somebody who doesn't really understand the depth of the dynamics of all of this, when there's that push pull, the other person, or just within yourself, it's just push pull, push pull, push pull. When you have the support of somebody or people that understand that, when you push, they don't push back, they receive it. So instead of being able to actually push away, the other person kind of, I don't know if this is going to make sense, the other person receives it and takes you in and holds you in that as well. And when you pull, if it's just you or somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, then they get caught up in that pull as well, and they just kind of take you, or you just kind of take them along with you. When you have the support of somebody who understands that that's what's happening and why it's happening, then when you pull, they give you some space to pull, but they don't let you pull too far. They give you some space, but they also don't let you float too far out. And I just had a visual of that. Was it Gravity, that movie where the people were tethered to the spaceship and like that kind of thing. um, Thank you, Jack. I'm glad that you're here, and I appreciate you saying that you're watching all the time. It's always nice to know who's watching because obviously most people don't comment. But I see how many views there are, but I have no idea if it could be the same person watching it 20 different times. So it's nice to know. It's nice to hear from people who are actually out there watching. I appreciate that. Um, the monster side, um, that is the really protective side. And as somebody has recently kind of described it, it's the kind of a part that is in a defensive mode, like a defending part, defending against being hurt. And yeah, it can be incredibly problematic at times. But being able to recognize that that is because something is being triggered and it's part of the protection thing. For some people, protection means withdrawing and isolating and pulling within themselves and not interacting at all. And for other people, that protective piece is the monster, as you're putting it. It's the part that reacts. It acts out. It becomes much more kind of like animated in a way, energetically speaking. And neither one are healthy. So it's not that this is better or that's better. Neither one of them are healthy. On this side, you're more likely just hurting yourself, which may be less shameful in terms of what you end up experiencing. But they're both hurtful to yourself overall as well. Is there a way to ask a question? Sure, you can ask right here. And it looks like you do have a question down here. So I will get to that in a second. Um, oh, thank you, Amanda, for answering that. The voice telling me, no, no, don't you dare speak up is so strong. Um, yes, Ashley, that is a significant challenge. Even when I'm working with people, whether it's individually or in a group setting, that's a really big challenge to work through. It happens. It just takes a lot of persistence. It takes practice and it takes time because it does take so much practice. But learning to be silenced, however you learn that, and sometimes it's very direct and overt, and sometimes we learn to be silenced because of the things that we're saying to ourselves. But either way, it is a significant challenge to overcome because there's a lot of fear kind of bred into that in our bodies. Because we fear that if we share or speak, because there's been so much fear tied to it, it becomes like a survival thing, that speaking is really not good. So it is quite the challenge, and it has to be something that you specifically, very intentionally work on in that regard. Connection is paramount. Absolutely, Pam. From suffering from body shame. So body shame can mean some different things, but this is a significant piece for a lot of people, and it could be for different reasons, but it is a really common thing. And understanding, so we can say, okay, body shame, but there's really, I think, probably always, and I don't say always or never very often, so I'm very intentional about using those words, or try to be anyway. But I think I can say that body shame is, there's something deeper about that. And maybe it's still related to body shame, but there's something maybe deeper or more specific about what that body shame is. And sometimes it is about your body specifically, but sometimes it's coming from other ideas about ourselves, other ideas about bodies, other ideas about genitalia or sex or whatever it may be, society's ideas of what a body should be or how it should perform or whatever. Like there's a lot of people who have body shame around having a disability, um, or in a physical attribute that is not like normal or whatever. So there's lots of ways that that can look, and almost always there's going to be a deeper piece to that, that where the healing actually will happen. Thank you for being here. Sharia, I'm glad that you shared. It sounds like in your sharing that maybe it was beneficial for you and maybe also for other people, whether they could specifically relate to it or just gain understanding and awareness, which is also really important. Being able to say me too is incredibly important and, of course, healing. But even the ability to have a new understanding of something heals them, heals you, heals the people around them. So lots of healing that can happen in those moments. Body shame is from sexual abuse. Oh, Jack. I don't know if you're working with anybody or not, but I definitely would encourage you to find somebody that you can work with to help with this, because even just in your language as you describe that just kind of breaks my heart to hear just how intense that feeling must be, to hear those words, because those words are incredibly powerful and hold so much energy, like shameful energy around them. And there's absolutely nothing for you to feel ashamed of in regards to what happened to you or your body. And that I can absolutely say without any hesitation whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. But that having that strong of a feeling about your body is devastating to your sense of self and how you show up in the world. So, so if you are working with somebody, please talk about that. If you're not working with somebody, please try to find somebody that you can work with, somebody who really understands the complexity of what it means to be a survivor of abuse. And if it's an option for you, possibly even joining us in Journey to Wholeness. Even if you don't participate in the group, the course actually, I do, there is a part on your body. I also have a meditation, or connecting within your body, but I also have a meditation album with one of the meditations is specifically about learning to love and honor your body. So you might find that helpful. And I can share a link for that. I don't know if I have that open, but actually I can go ahead and share that link. So excuse me for a moment, everybody. Where's my video? So this link that I'm sharing is actually to a meditation album that has a meditation for building a sense of safety, like a safe space meditation. I call it Creating Refuge. It has a learning to love and honor your body meditation, accepting yourself as you are, and a sleep meditation to help you sleep, get to sleep, and hopefully sleep restfully. So you can take a look at that if you're interested. You know, I was talking a little while ago about some differences that male survivors may have around abuse that female survivors don't tend to struggle with quite as much necessarily. And Jack, what you're sharing here about being a male and being abused by a male and body image or even sexuality, is definitely a big struggle for, I think I can actually say for every man that I've known that has been abused by particularly a same sex um, abuser. And there's there's not an inherent reason that you should struggle more with that. There's not an actual reason um, for you to feel badly about it, but it is a natural thing for people to experience because of society's ideas of sexuality and homophobia and all of that kind of stuff. So this is a really important thing to be able to work on. So I really do hope that you're able to find, and of course, women have this issue too, whether they're abused by a man or a woman. And men can have this issue even if they're abused by a woman, or in maybe obviously some differences there. But inevitably, for a man who has been abused by a male, that is one of the more significant things that is very prominent for people that they struggle with. Good. I'm glad that you have a therapist. Jack, I hope those tears are tears of feeling seen and heard, some relief, knowing that you're not alone. I hope that they are not tears of reminders of pain. Although sometimes they can go together, and as long as you're feeling some of that relief or understanding, then those are good tears. Tears can be a very healthy um, and positive thing if we allow ourselves to be in that space. Good. I'm glad. I'm really glad to hear that. So, um, so coming back to, I think that I've answered everything that I've seen so far. So if I've missed you and you said something earlier on, please share it again. It's possible that I just didn't see it, or it's possible for some reason YouTube didn't let me see it. Um, I remember crying when you found me. Hopefully, again, that was a positive thing. Um, so yeah, yeah, there's so, again, in that moment of knowing that you're not alone, that that moment is so incredibly healing. That moment is healing, and obviously there's a lot more that needs to happen, but that moment is healing. And again, going back to the idea of a group, because there are so many moments in a group as people share, there are so many moments that you get to experience that over and over again. You get that moment of, oh my God, I'm not alone, or I'm not the only one. And every time that you get to experience that, every time you get to experience that, there's healing that happens on a cellular level. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, even if you can't necessarily fully take it in and you come up with some sort of, yeah, but, or whatever, if you feel just for a second that sense of knowing that you're not alone and what that feels like in your body, there is healing that happens in that moment. And I so desperately want you all to feel that. I want you all to be able to know what that feels like, because you all deserve that. And I know how isolating and painful and overwhelming and heartbreaking and hopeless and all of those words, I know how that can feel when you're in that place. And I talk about this so much because I know that you don't have to be there. I know what is possible on the other side. And I so want that for you. And I know, based on what I've heard from people, that Journey to Wholeness and participating in the connecting that happens with the other survivors, with whether it's Q&A or in the group itself, the live component, the healing that happens in that is not something that I think most people have actually experienced in any other way. And I want that for you. And I know that while I have priced this at a place that I think is very reasonable for what you're getting, and if you think about it over 12 weeks, especially, but even over 6 weeks, I actually haven't figured that out, but it's $187 over 6 lessons. That's actually very, very reasonable. If you thought about going to a support group, you'd pay at a minimum, probably at a very minimum, $35 to $40 per group, and you wouldn't necessarily have the support and interaction um, in between your weekly group sessions. So, I've tried to price it at something that I think is very reasonable for what it is. I know, unfortunately, that it's still too much for some people, and there's something that's holding me back from trying to, like, from actually putting it out there to have a way for people to donate or something like that. And people have asked me about it, but I haven't done that yet. Um, but I want to find a way to be able to allow people who can't afford it to be able to join, but that hasn't happened yet. But I have created a way to do it over 2 months so that you don't have to pay the full price at once, and it's 187. So it's not, like, again, for what it is, it's not an exorbitant amount of money, and I know to work with me individually is higher than people would pay for an in-person therapist. I do understand that. So I absolutely know that working with me individually is not something that many people are able to do. Which is why I do this stuff, which is why I created the course at a much lower price point so that I can still join people on their journey without them having to work with me individually. The two payment option is over 2 months, and it's $99 per payment. So it's just two payments of $99. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to share them here. And like I said, if you didn't catch this earlier on, the reason that I keep talking about Journey to Wholeness over this past month is that not only do I want you to be able to experience it if it's something that you think that you might want to do, but there's a good chance that I likely will not offer this live component at this price point again. I will very likely do a live component again, but it probably won't be at this price point. So if you can get in, please do. It officially started today. The group did. The group officially started today. But it was a bonus lesson. So next week is when we start on the first official lesson, which is taking root. But so today is September 3rd, 2019. If you are watching this tomorrow or in a couple weeks or even 6 weeks from now, you are welcome to still join. You can purchase Journey to Wholeness and you can come into the group. And you can start where we're starting, or you can start at the beginning. But everything that we've done in the group will still be available to you. So all the lives, all the posts will be in the group, and you can go back and watch them at your convenience and still take a lot from them and jump in and start participating. So if you join Journey to Wholeness at any time over the next few months, then you will have the group available to you. And I honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do with the group when the 3 months is over. It will certainly stay open for a period of time. Um, I may have the group open, and people who join 6 months from now may be able to come into the group and watch the recorded lives and all of that. And I just may not be in the group itself. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But again, if you're thinking about joining this and you're watching it a week from now or 6 weeks from now or 8 weeks from now, 10 weeks from now, and you want to join and get into the group, you're absolutely welcome to do that. You don't have to get in right now to be able to participate and gain a lot from being in it. But of course, the sooner you join, the more you're going to get from it, and you'll be able to ask your own questions and all of that. So, if you've got any questions about the course, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, please share them, and I will do my best to answer whatever questions I can. And there is a link at the top, and I don't think that I had the ability. Let's see if I can pin this. It doesn't appear that I can. Um, so I'm not able to pin that. But at the very top of the comments or bottom of the comments or however that works, the very first comment was a link that I shared for the course. So you can check it out. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you've got any concerns about participating in a Facebook group, first of all, you're not alone. But please reach out to me because I may be able to alleviate some of those concerns. We've found some ways for people to participate um, that makes them feel much more comfortable in being able to do so in Facebook. So if that's what's holding you up, please definitely make sure to let me know. And if that's the specific concern that you have, I would encourage you to send me an email, healing@courageousjourneys.com, and just put JTW question or something like that in the subject line. And let me know specifically what your concern about joining the group, the Facebook group is, and I may be able to help with that. So let me just go back. I want to make sure that I answer all these questions. Thank you all for being here as well. I find that it's so much more lonely in the male world. Do you find this as well? Yeah, this is absolutely one of the struggles that men as a whole deal with, that women don't necessarily struggle with. There are a lot of women who do struggle with it, and even women, I would say that all women struggle with being open to a huge extent, but in general, men are absolutely taught, whether again, it's very direct and overt or even very subtly, males are taught that they're not supposed to feel anything really other than maybe anger or lust. Um, they're taught to not be weak. And by being weak, that means don't feel anything that makes you feel sad or vulnerable or tearful. Uh, Men are taught that you're like if you were abused by if you're male and you were abused by a woman, you're taught again, maybe directly or indirectly, you're taught that you should feel lucky. Like there's all kinds of things that society teaches men that are so harmful in so many ways, and even things that are unrelated to abuse. But especially if you're a survivor of abuse, then all of those messages are compounded by that experience without any doubt whatsoever. And you may not be aware of this, and I don't know if this is going to be the actual website. I think it is. This website, so I'm sharing a website, oneinsix.org is it's a website, but they also have a Facebook page, and it's for male survivors. So I would encourage you to connect with them. They've got lots of information and they share a lot of stories and stuff. I absolutely want you to stay connected to me, but that's, I think, a great resource for male survivors as well. So check that out if you haven't heard about that. So amazing to finally trust someone, both in group and one-to-one. Yes, I agree, Pam. And it is when you haven't allowed yourself or haven't had an opportunity, because maybe the people in your life haven't been good people to do this with, but when you haven't been able to feel truly connected, when you haven't had somebody that you learned that you felt like you could really trust and be open with, you really can't actually imagine, like in terms of energy, what that actually feels like. Like you might be able to think, oh, it might feel like this or it might feel like that. And they might be similar. But if you've never actually felt that, which most survivors haven't until they've really done a lot of healing, you can't even really describe what it feels like because it just has to be felt. It has to be experienced. And that's part of the freedom when you actually do get to experience that. Okay. Michael, I don't, This is not about politics. And if you want to talk about healing, then please talk about healing. But if you want to talk about somebody who has actually created more wounding for a lot of people here, then this isn't the place. So please. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. So Amanda shared, I haven't done Journey to Wholeness, but she has done a retreat with me. Um, and letting people know that you will benefit. And she's promising that. That's a big word, promising. Thank you, Amanda, so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And it means a lot that you feel that way. Um, okay, so sorry. The group that I'm talking about is Journey to Wholeness. And if you can go to the top or bottom of the chat, you may not be able to do it here. Like you might have to wait till the video is over. I have a link. It's Journey to Wholeness. It's also on my website. My website is courageousjourneys.com, but it's a course that I created for survivors of abuse. You don't have to participate in the Facebook group. It's designed to kind of work through on your own, but the Facebook group is available where we're going to be doing lots of live stuff. So, and actually, if I can go back and find that link again, I will happily share that. So bear with me just for a moment to look up this link and come back and share it with you guys. So this link that I'm sharing right now is for the course Journey to Wholeness. So all the information, Jack, is right there. Thank you, Pam, for sharing that for him. Is it normal or possible to emotionally detach yourself from your body? Is it normal? It happens frequently for people that have been particularly sexually abused or assaulted, but even physical violence that can happen. So it's not uncommon at all, but it's definitely not like it's a triggered reaction. It's a coping mechanism. So it's not something that we want to continue to happen. And as you heal, that's one of the things that will certainly hopefully change because it's a fairly common thing for people to experience, but it's not like a healthy thing. It's not a normal, healthy thing for people to experience, but it is a normal, traumatic thing for people to experience. I hope that makes sense. Certainly nothing to be ashamed of or even be freaked out about, like in terms of like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm too damaged or whatever. Okay, people, I don't know. I guess when you do live videos on YouTube, this is the thing that you might end up experiencing. So if you have any questions about healing, if you have any questions about Journey to Wholeness, we have been on here almost an hour and a half. Please feel free to share them. And let's see. Oh, well, I don't know who you are on here, but you are in Journey to Understanding. So obviously I know you. No, you do not have to pay again to join Journey to Wholeness. So you still have access to all the information that you had in Journey to Understanding, or at least you should. And if you don't, please let me know. But you have access to the course. It's all the same stuff. And if you're not in the Journey to Wholeness group right now, then you just need to request to join it. And you should have received an email. Today, actually, I sent out an email to everybody in the Journey to Understanding group. So that was the first people who took Journey to Wholeness. Oh, wait, that's not what I meant. But you should have received an email letting you know about group, the new group, and no, you did not have to pay. So I'm going to share a link here. So this link is for the Facebook group for Journey to Wholeness. So just click on that and request to join. And for anybody who has not yet joined Journey to Wholeness, this link that I'm sharing right now that I just shared is for people who have signed up for Journey to Wholeness. So if you've signed up for Journey to Wholeness, if you're thinking about joining or signing up for Journey to Wholeness, this is the group that I'm talking about. So this is where I will be doing the live Q&As, and where I will be sharing prompts and all kinds of things to help facilitate this experience together. Oh, well, hello, Becky. So no additional fee. So anybody, if you're watching this, if you have purchased Journey to Wholeness or Journey to Understanding previously, no matter where you are in the process, you should absolutely still have access to all of your lessons. And if you're having difficulty accessing that, please reach out to me and let me know, because you should have access to that. And you are welcome to join the Facebook group that I just shared a link to a few moments ago. So that is open to anybody who has joined Journey to Wholeness at any time. And I will say that I've got quite a few people in the group that have joined Journey, who have ever purchased Journey to Wholeness. But I also have a lot of people who have no desire to join a Facebook group for any number of reasons, and that's okay. I just hope that they're getting out of it what they hope to get out of it. So not everybody who's purchased Journey to Wholeness will be in the group, but quite a few people are going to be in the group, but it's not like in the hundreds or anything like that. In fact, I think we're right now at about 20-ish people in the group. So it's not a huge group, if that helps alleviate any concerns or fears as well. So again, if you have ever wished that you could work with me, if you have looked into working with me, but you just are not able to make working with me one-on-one possible for whatever reason, if you've thought about joining Journey to Wholeness, this is a really good opportunity for us to be able to connect and for me to join you on your journey. Because, like I said, I don't think that I will offer the live component to Journey to Wholeness again at this price point. So please take advantage of it if you've ever thought about it. I cannot make any guarantees to what you will get out of this course, because there are way too many factors that are beyond my control. But based on feedback, I can say that people have found the course to be really helpful. And I've had people take the course that were brand new to healing, and I've had people take the course that have done different types of healing at different points in their lives over decades. So, and in different age aspects as well. So wherever you are in this healing journey, people have shared that they've really gained a lot from the course, and particularly from when they add that into the live pieces of it, it's been really powerful in their healing. And I just want you to take advantage of the opportunity while it's here, while it's available to you. So if you've ever thought about it, now is the time. And again, if you're watching this a week from now or 10 weeks from now, and it's September 3rd, 2019, and you want to join, it's not too late. It's not too late. You can get caught up on all the live Q&As and still connect inside the group. And every 2 weeks or so, you'll get a new lesson, and I will do a live Q&A for each lesson. And who knows what else I'll be doing in the group. But I will be in the group. I will be supporting you. I will be sharing posts and encouraging you sharing and connecting and exploring and all of that. And I would love the opportunity to be able to do that with you. So really, now is the time, if you've ever thought about it. And I my desire is not to try to pressure you into doing something that may not feel right to you. If it doesn't feel right, please don't do it, because there are no refunds. So if it doesn't feel right, I don't want you to do it. But if you've thought about it, if you've had the desire but held back for whatever reason because you thought, oh, I shouldn't spend the money, oh, I don't know if I can do it, you've had some of these fears that I addressed earlier on. Um, so you're kind of holding yourself up, or back. You're coming up with all the different what ifs or excuses, or all the reasons why you shouldn't take care of yourself or take this step. Let yourself kind of think about it for a moment and ask, what if I took this leap? What if I actually, whether it's time commitment or financial commitment or risk in connecting with other people, what if I did that and it actually, and all the fears that I have didn't come true? What if I took this opportunity and found connection that I didn't really know was possible? What if I took this opportunity and started to believe in myself in a way that I didn't know I ever could? What if I take this opportunity and am able to learn and recognize things about myself that I had no idea existed? Because I pretty confidently can say that those latter things that I just mentioned are much more likely to happen than the fears that you might be holding on to. Again, I can't promise that, but based on experience and based on feedback, I feel confident that that will be the case, especially if the more you engage, the more you will get out of it. The more you set aside the time and the space and the opportunity for yourself, the more you will get out of it. And I would love to be beside you as you do that. Um, well, Amanda, you are open to join it at any point. I would love to have you in the group. As a survivor, struggle with body image too. I don't know that I've ever known somebody who was abused that, maybe not body image necessarily. So not everybody that I've ever known like would identify having a difficult time with body image, but body issues in some way or another almost always is a fairly significant issue for almost all survivors. And I would also say, just kind of more generally, because of the society that we live in for women in general, and unfortunately over the last maybe 15, 20 years or so, even more so again for men, like it's becoming more of an issue for men in terms of body image as well, which is incredibly unfortunate. You deserve this. Amanda, I don't know if you're saying that for you or if you're saying that for somebody else, but either way, you and the other people do deserve this. Need all the support you can get. We all do. We all need support. And one of the things that is such a struggle for so many people is believing that we should be able to do it on our own, or that having support is weak in some way. And neither one of those things are true. None of us can do this on our own. None of us. Remember, I was already on the other side of healing for quite some time. And a few years ago, I had a situation come up, not abuse related, or not something traumatic that happened in my life at that time, but something came up that was bringing up some old stuff. And I went back to therapy. I couldn't, because it was my own stuff, I couldn't see what was really going on because I was in it. So I wasn't able to see what was really creating the issue. We cannot do this on our own. None of us can. It has nothing to do with strength. It has nothing to do with, excuse me, intelligence. It has nothing to do with determination. Excuse me. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the fact that we were wounded in the context of a relationship or at least an interpersonal experience, and we can only heal in the context of a healing interpersonal experience. Excuse me. So none of us can do this on our own. The other piece, if I can remember now, let's see, where I forgot what I was going with. We need the support. Okay, so it's not, so none of us can do it on our own, and it not being weak. Well, if you can recognize that none of us can actually do this on our own, then it's not about strength or weakness. It's just about recognizing that reality. Like we could never perform heart surgery on ourselves, right? So that's just a fact. The idea of weakness. So you'll notice, whether you've been following me for any amount of time at all, or are new to me, everything is about courage, right? It's courageous journeys. I talk about courage all the time. And that is for a very specific reason, because recognizing that there's something to heal takes courage, because we use denial. We are masters at denial. We are not even aware. It's so powerful that we're not even aware that we're using denial. It is much easier to stay in that place. So much easier. Doesn't mean that life is good necessarily at all. In fact, it's probably not. But it is so much easier to stay in a place of denial. When you recognize that there's something to heal and you take a step to actually connect with somebody, whether it's a therapist or another person, and sharing something, you're making a conscious decision to be vulnerable. You're making a decision to take a risk. That is kind of the very definition of courage. Literally. So if you have an idea that having support or needing to heal, even the fact that you've been affected by it, if that makes you feel weak, really think about what I just said. Getting support, allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to talk about the struggle takes far more courage than staying in denial. Now, that's not a judgment about being in denial. I've certainly been there. All survivors, I think, are there at some point or another, most for much of their lives. So it's not a judgment. Denial serves a very important purpose. But it's easy because we don't even have to think about it. We don't have to make a choice about it. It just happens. Reaching out for help is a choice, and it's a scary choice. And that's why it's courageous. So there's nobody here who is sharing anything who is weak. You couldn't be. You cannot be weak and be here and share. You cannot be weak and be in therapy talking about this stuff. You cannot be weak and allow yourself to feel. Those two things just don't go together. Weakness and allowing yourself to feel. If you are weak, you're not going to allow yourself to feel. If you're weak, you're not going to be willing to take that risk. If you're weak, you're going to be too afraid to share something. And of course, there's going to be moments when you're afraid to share. It's not about being afraid. Of course, you're going to be afraid. It's about making a conscious choice to do it. That's the courage, right? So if you think that there's anything about having support that is weak, it's time to let that go. Um, so first of all, struggling with going to a dentist is something that a lot of people really struggle with. So you're certainly not alone in that. One thing that I would actually encourage you to do, I mean, it's going to feel vulnerable and you may not want to do it, and I don't know what part of the world you live in, but if you feel like you could, especially if you've seen your dentist a handful of times or so, or more than just once, I would actually encourage you to share with your dentist your concern. So you don't necessarily have to go into a lot of detail. You could maybe just say, I had an experience that causes me to have a really strong gag reflex, or that causes me to be really afraid of being in this chair, or whatever. Or you could just say, I'm really afraid of being in this chair. And there may be some things that they can do to help with that. So that would be one thing. Um, there are some things actually that you might be able to do to help with going to the dentist. Like, I don't, obviously, I'm not aware of the whole context of your conversation with your therapist about trying to dissociate, but generally speaking, true dissociation is not something I would recommend, um, for a couple of different reasons. But again, I don't know the whole context, and so I don't want to say that it's necessarily absolutely wrong. But if you're asking the question, it suggests to me that there's a part of you that feels like you're not quite sure, and it might be helpful to trust that. What I would suggest, or maybe think could be helpful, is distraction, which is different than dissociating. So anytime we feel overwhelmed or are just kind of struggling a lot, distraction can with it, when it's done with intention, distraction is actually a very healthy coping mechanism. Now, it can also be an unhealthy coping mechanism when we're not conscious that we're doing it, or we're distracting in unhealthy ways. Then that's obviously not healthy. But using distraction in a healthy way is a really powerful and helpful way to cope. So distraction in that sense could be good. So that could be, like, a lot of dentists actually have, like a TV. So when you're leaning back, there's like a TV above you. So and then you can have headphones on, and so that can be a really helpful distraction. It's not going to work, 100% effectively, but it can be helpful. Um, Also, just listening to something, that's not, like, if they don't have a TV or whatever, but listening to something can also be a distraction. Um, I mentioned earlier meditations, and they are both in Journey to Wholeness, and then I also have a meditation album, and there's tons of other meditations out there as well. But listening to a meditation actually might be really beneficial in that situation as well. But I do think that maybe letting your dentist know that you have some fear or trauma, or however you want to say it, actually could be really helpful. More and more dentists, obviously, there's fewer dentists who are aware than there are who are not. But more dentists, I think, are becoming aware of the reality of, not just that people are afraid of the dentist, but it can be re-traumatizing or triggering for a lot of people. So I would encourage you to maybe talk to your dentist about that. Thank you, Becky, for sharing that. So Becky shared that she did Journey to Understanding, the first time it came out. Best money I ever spent, and best investment I ever made in myself. That's quite, uh, the what's the word I'm looking for? Testimonial. Thank you, Becky, so much for sharing that, and I appreciate you sharing that for other people, um, to hear from somebody who's done it, and on the other side, or wherever it was, but being able to say when you've done it, that you feel like it was such a helpful experience for you to have. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Talking to your therapist, you can come to your own awareness. Yes. Yeah. That is one of the things that absolutely hopefully should happen in therapy, at least on occasion. But that's one of the kind of the beautiful things is the further that you go along with or through it, I guess I should say, the more that begins to happen. Uh, and it is when you come to that understanding, it's kind of exhilarating, right? Um, yeah, journaling is definitely really, really helpful. Um, And Amanda, I'm actually quite the same way in terms of for me, like if I'm just thinking about something, it tends to be cyclical. Even if nobody actually says anything, but I share kind of what I'm struggling with or what I'm trying to make a decision about or whatever, just by speaking it, just by being able to share my thoughts about it or whatever, I come to my own conclusion. And actually, it was a supervisor when I was in, actually, when I worked at the rape crisis. Oh, no, 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 I'm sorry. It was when I was in undergraduate, actually. One of my professors kind of pointed that out to me one time when I was sharing something with her. She pointed that out to me. And then when I was working at the Rape Crisis Center, I was speaking with my supervisor about something. And so I was just kind of letting her know. And as I kept talking, I ended up speaking the outcome, like the answer that I was looking for. And she pointed that out to me then as well, which was really helpful because it helps you recognize that you do have the answers. You know, having a therapist isn't about a therapist having all the answers. Having a therapist is about helping you see the things that you're not able to see within yourself. So it's not that they are, imparting all this wisdom that would never be available to you in any other way. It's that they help you kind of release some of the blocks that help you really understand that. Kind of like when I went back to therapy a few years ago, like she didn't come up with some brilliant thing. In fact, she didn't even like pinpoint and say, okay, this is what's going on. It was in talking about something that I realized in that moment when I said it, it was like, oh my God, that's it. But having that space where I could talk openly and express is what helped me recognize that within myself. And honestly, she didn't recognize that. Like, she didn't understand the significance of those two things. And it's not necessarily because she wasn't a good therapist, um, but we understand ourselves, we understand all the nuances, we understand experiences that haven't yet been spoken or whatever. So that often does happen. And that's beautiful when that happens. Oh, absolutely. I don't even think that I was specifically speaking. Maybe I was. I didn't think that anybody was suggesting that it was weak, like actually saying that it's weak. I wasn't thinking that at all. Um, so please, no apology necessary. Um, or justification or anything else. Yes, we all need support. We really do. And I hope whether it's in this course, whether it's with me or in your own therapy, wherever it is, I really hope that all of you watching this have the support that you deserve and that you need. Distraction sounds much healthier. Yeah, and again, I don't know what she was suggesting necessarily. Maybe she even said dissociation instead of distraction. Maybe she meant that. I have no idea, but I think distraction might be a good idea. Um, no apology necessary at all here. Yeah, when we have the opportunity to talk through things, it's amazing what we can recognize within ourselves, which is why I think journaling is so important because it gives us the time and the space to just to see all of that that's going on there. So, um, if you've got any questions, feel free to share them here. There's another. There was another question that I wanted to address quickly as well. So, and this maybe kind of came up a little bit. I'm not sure. So I know a lot of you are already working with a therapist, which is great, and I wouldn't want you to not do that. Um, so wondering if it's okay to do this course in group two, and I would say that really, ideally, I would love for people who are doing this course to actually be working with somebody individually. Um, Not that you have to, but I think it would be really, really incredibly beneficial if you are, because the things that come up, and certainly inside the group, we'll have an opportunity, you'll have an opportunity to share, we'll have an opportunity to kind of process and all of that. But when you have an individual person that you're working with, whatever comes up in a group process, having the ability to talk about that and process that individually, one on one, that can be incredibly healing because the dynamic of a group itself is part of what is healing. So having the ability to process that in a one-on-one scenario, I think is ideal. I would actually really love it if everybody taking this course was working with somebody individually. Um, because that can be so helpful. So if you are working with somebody, I don't want you to feel like you shouldn't work with them if you want to do this course. I don't want you to feel like you can't do the course if you are working with somebody. The two together can actually be incredibly beneficial. So if that's something that you've wondered about, now you have an answer. Hi, Wendy. Any ideas on how to lessen stress and anxiety? Well, it depends on the circumstances, and there are lots of ideas. Um, Generally, in terms of like healing overall, I would say that having support, and that doesn't, I'm not necessarily referring to a therapist, but having somebody that you can share what you're feeling stressed out about is important. Taking time to yourself, making sure you're getting enough sleep, and breathing, intentional breathing, also often referred to as meditation. Meditation can mean other things too, but intentional breathing is actually a form of meditation. Um, but and I do this in Journey to Wholeness actually. So there's different parts about connecting within and breathing and doing some meditations and stuff like that to help reduce and help you feel grounded. Um, but being present, doing things to practice being present absolutely helps stress and anxiety. So as a general statement, I would say some aspect of mindfulness and or meditation, and that can look so many different ways, is ultimately probably going to be the best thing. If you follow me at all, you know that I talk about taking a deep breath, breathing. Like I say that all the time. Because when you take intentional deep breaths, it actually calms your nervous system. It does. The more you practice it, the more your nervous system, instead of kind of continually being up here in that stress and anxiety space, the more you practice it, your stress level naturally decreases at a base level. So yes, you'll still get stressed or whatever, but your base level is down here instead of up here. Done lots of work in therapy for many years. I think this is a good question too, Jack. So Jack says, and I don't know if that's your actual name or not, but that's what I'm calling you, so that's okay. I've done lots of work in therapy for many years. What I really need is support very badly. Would I still benefit from the group? This is really a great question. I find that I need more support than education. Yes, I believe so. I absolutely believe so. I've had people, a couple of different people that have taken the course that actually began healing, one about 20 years ago, one more than 20 years ago, and has done healing at different points and for lengthy periods of time at points. So the material, it is education, it is understanding, but it goes deeper than that. So there's the educational component, but the meditation and the journal prompts take it much deeper than just the understanding at a conscious or rational cognitive level. So the course goes deeper than the understanding, which is actually why I named it From Journey to Understanding to Journey to Wholeness. Um, but the support inside the group, um, so I think that the potential to get even more just from the course itself is there, but the support with the group and um, just kind of the experience of it overall, I think will certainly help connect some of those things. Now, the one thing that I will say, you identified that you are a male. So inside the group, it's in fact right now, before I came on this live, I believe that, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe that all the people in the group are women. Um, I don't want that to dissuade you from participating. I think the unfortunate reality is for a lot of males that the majority of people that they're going to connect with, even on this chat here, it's mostly women because men are not feeling comfortable enough yet to come forward and share publicly or even like in a small group setting. So I do want to say that to you if that's a factor that will have an impact on you. The other thing that I have available that you might find benefit from is a separate private Facebook group called Courageous Warriors that is just a free group that I have for survivors of childhood abuse. It's not about journey to wholeness. It's a very different, those are very different things, but obviously the things that we talk about are somewhat similar, but that's a free group and it's called Courageous Warriors. So you could take a look at that if you wanted to for support and connection. And I do have a couple of men in there who tend to share. I've got more than just a couple men in the group, but I've got a couple men in the group who tend to share and comment and stuff like that. So that might be helpful too. But of course, I would love to have you join us in Journey to Wholeness as well. Let's see. Therapist suggested journaling as a distraction to put off self-harm, but I end up unconsciously going from writing to hurting myself anyway. So that does happen, and it's not uncommon. Journaling can be a distraction, but the difficulty with journaling, if you engage in unhealthy ways of coping, is that it often you're writing about stuff that doesn't feel good, and your coping mechanisms are very likely going to kick in. What I will often tell people, and this is kind of specific, but it's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. So this is a general statement. I'm not suggesting necessarily that you do this. But one of the things that I will sometimes suggest to people who self-harm is that before you self-harm, journal. Before you act in any unhealthy coping way, so whether it's self-harming, although that's what I tend to use it for, but it could be some sort of other addictive behavior. It could be going out and do something that you'll feel badly about later or whatever, that you write about it. You write about why you're wanting to do it and what relief you think it will give you. And then if after, and depending on the circumstance, I might ask them to write something else specifically. And then if after that you decide to do that, then you decide to do that. But journaling or writing down, like actually making yourself become present. So you're not just thinking about whatever you're writing about in a journal, like the past or the future or whatever, but taking a moment to get present with what happened to make me want to do this and why do I want to do it. More often than not, and I would say probably 75% of the time at least, more often than not, will be enough space for somebody to not end up doing what they were planning on doing. And I hope that makes sense what I'm suggesting there. But it's about becoming present because often our need to to do something to distract in an unhealthy way or cope is coming from a very unconscious place because again our unhealthy coping mechanisms are kind of instinct driven. So if we can be intentionally present, it can create enough space for us not to do that. And then, of course, knowing what are the healthy coping things that I can do instead is also helpful because then you can go do that instead. Uh, let's just jump somewhere. I'm glad that you're working on overcoming all of that shame and the fear and the flashbacks. It's so important to do this. So many people have lived. I didn't know that you could heal. I had no idea that you could heal. I thought that that's just the way that life was going to be. And for most of us, that's what we've believed because nobody talked about it. And even when people started talking about it, they didn't talk about healing. They talked about how damaged you were and how life altering it is and how you can never recover from something so traumatic, which it's good that people recognize that it's so significantly impactful. But at the same time, my goodness, talk about feeling hopeless. So people haven't talked about the reality of what it means to heal, not just manage, not just survive, but to actually heal. So I'm glad that you're giving yourself the time and space to do that. I'm glad that you're finding some support here. If the only thing you can do is take a deep breath, do that. Absolutely. Um, and sometimes that can be the biggest thing you can do. Like that's going to be the most helpful. An intentional breath. An intentional breath can go such a long way. Yes, the healthy coping, this is healing. So going back to the question like about like how do you know when you're done with the healing part or whatever, you're coping in healthy ways. You're aware and you choose healthy coping mechanisms or you get to a point even where you don't have to choose. Like it's not a conscious decision you have to make. You just naturally are making subconscious choices to choose the healthy way of coping. And that's how you know that you're there. You would like to be a part of that too, and what you shared with Jack. Um, I don't know if you're talking about the Courageous Warrior group or if you are talking about the Journey to Wholeness course. So I can share the Journey to Wholeness course again because I still have it copied and pasted. Oh no, that's the Facebook group. Sorry, that's the Facebook group for people who have joined Journey to Wholeness. Let me share this again. So this is that I'm going to share right now is the link to the course. So those two links go together. If you join Journey to Wholeness, you can join the Journey to Wholeness Facebook group. The other group that I mentioned just a few moments ago to Jack was the Courageous Warrior Facebook group, and that is completely free. And let me see if I can find a link for that quickly. Oh, wait, no, that's actually on my website. You have to sign up on my website for that. Sorry. Or if somebody else can share that quickly. Oh, you wouldn't have it. Never mind. Here it is. So if you're interested in the Courageous Warrior group, which is a Facebook group for any survivor of childhood abuse, it's totally free. You can sign up here. So you do have to sign up on my website. You have to sign up there. I do collect your email. You sign up there, and then it will direct you to Facebook. Make sure that you request to join on Facebook inside the Courageous Warrior group. There's also, I think, 3 questions or 3 things that you have to check or whatever. Please make sure that you answer those, because if you don't answer those, then I don't actually even really see a request to join. So I won't be able to admit you. You have to do both. You have to sign up on my website. It's free, completely free. You will never be charged for it. Um, so you sign up on my website, and then you have to request to join on the Courageous Warrior Facebook group as well. And it will automatically direct you back to Facebook once you sign up. So, okay. Um, so, Wendy, these are things that you're certainly not alone in. Um, Support is absolutely necessary. And I don't know where you are in the world, but having professional support is so important. Please, please, please try to find somebody. Connecting with your local rape crisis center. So if you live in the US and parts of Europe and there's even at different parts of the world, actually, there are rape crisis centers. So you can search for your area and rape crisis center. Most provide low cost or free counseling services for survivors of sexual assault and adult survivors of sexual abuse. So you can try there. Um, the other thing, if it's an option for you, is possibly joining Journey to Wholeness, because while it's not individual work, which I think is important, everybody needs individual work in order to be able to heal. I absolutely believe that. Um, but in order, or in terms of having some support to know that you're not alone, joining Journey to Wholeness will give you the healing pieces that are really important to help build a foundation or to strengthen the foundation, as well as a space to be supported by me and by other survivors. And of course, there is the free Courageous Warrior group as well that you're welcome to join. Great question. If my current email address is different from our Facebook email address, will we still be able to join the group? So, what I would say is yes, you can. What I ask for when you sign up, and I don't know if you're talking about Journey to Wholeness or the other one, but it doesn't necessarily matter. It's kind of the same for both. So, when you provide your email to me, like on my website, whether you're buying something or signing up for the group, the free group, um, your name will be there too. So if you're using a name that isn't the name that you're signing up for, then it's important that you let me know what that is. If you're signing up for Courageous Warriors, so the free Facebook group, the link that I just shared a moment ago, if you're signing up for that, I ask for your email address, which is just your best email address for us to be able to stay connected. But then I also ask for your Facebook name. So when you request to join, you'll be joining with whatever Facebook name that is, so I'll know that it's you. Um, so that's for that piece. In terms of the Journey to Wholeness course, uh, again, when you sign up, if your if your Facebook name is different, so an email for that one doesn't necessarily matter. But if your Facebook name is different than the name that like your billing name or whatever, your actual name, then send me an email and let me know that it's a different name so that I can make sure that it's you that is asking to join. Um, so I hope that makes sense. If not, you can let me know. You are very welcome. I love the connection of live chats too. That's why I can be on here for over 2 hours. Like, I don't talk to anybody. Rarely do I ever talk to anybody for 2 hours. And granted, I'm not talking to one person here, but I love this too. And that's part of the reason that I am talking so much about Journey to Wholeness, because this is what's going to be happening. Maybe not for 2 hours, although I think that there were some live Q&As or live connections that happened for 2 hours. Um, But it's an opportunity to, inside the group and inside the live pieces, to be able to just have a conversation, to be able to get support from other people. And I've seen, and here people are connecting with one another too. And that's the healing. And so if you felt that here, it's going to be even more significant inside of Journey to Wholeness. I feel like I can pretty confidently say that. Um, and it's 3 months together. It's every, at a minimum, every couple of weeks as we go through this process together. So I would really love to have you join me in Journey to Wholeness. If you have any questions, once this is over, if you're watching it on replay, please feel free to let me know. Um, like I said, there is an option to make 2 payments over the course of 2 months. If that makes it more affordable or reachable for you, then you're welcome to take advantage of that. Um, and I do feel that, especially if you are, even if you're not actually doing the coursework itself, but you're just kind of participating a little bit here and there in the group, I think that you'll gain a lot from it. I really do. I really feel like I can pretty confidently say that. Now, if you're not participating in any of it, obviously you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you are coming into the group, if you're listening to the meditations, if you're doing the journal prompts, if you're engaging in it, I really do think that you'll gain a lot from it. And I would be honored to be with you in this part of your journey, wherever you are on this journey. Yes, Jack, she does have so much compassion. um, Well, Amanda, in some aspects, when you comment on something, I am speaking directly to you, and I'm speaking directly to you as somebody who knows you, and somebody who knows your struggle, and somebody who recognizes that your struggle is also the same kinds of struggles that so many other people have. And so, while I'm maybe talking specifically to you at some points, um, sometimes I'm not, but it still resonates. But even when I am talking to you directly, when I'm responding to your statement or comment or question, I know that it also resonates for other people. And I know that you deserve to heal. And I know how much the support benefits. And I want you to experience that. I so want you to be able to experience that. Yes, Amanda is part of our Courageous Warrior group. Well, I'm not looking to be a famous YouTuber, but thank you for your such thoughtful, considerate comment. Well, I'm sorry that you're not gaining anything from watching, but I know that other people are, and as long as I'm reaching one person, then that's all that really matters to me. Um, I'm glad that you're part of the supportive tribe as well. So, let's see, sorry, here. My goodness, I have to say that I don't know that I've had, and I don't know if you guys are seeing them or not, but there are some pretty rude comments on here today. Well, thank you, Chuck. But really, my goal isn't to be famous. My goal is to reach as many people who need to hear this message. That's what it's always been. And yes, I've gotten more people watching over the last few years, but I just want to reach the people who need to hear this message. I want to connect people to one another so that they feel connected and know that they're not alone. That's my goal. That's my desire. That's really all that I want. And however that happens, in whatever way that happens, I'm good with. So, wow. So, if you can see these comments, I'm actually going to take this opportunity to address this. So, whoever you are who are making rude and destructive and just mean comments, Um, there was a time that I never would have actually done YouTube, and you've probably heard me talk about that before because I didn't wouldn't have felt safe enough to be able to do that. I had no sense of worthiness. I had no self-esteem. Um, Never would I have done this. Now that I am where I am in this healing journey, I can see comments like that. People disagree with me at times, and that's perfectly okay. So people can disagree with me. People can come on my live video where people are being really vulnerable and connecting and being courageous and choose to jump in here and say something that's completely just rude and disrespectful and mean spirited and hateful and all of that. And whether it's directed at me or somebody else or just in general. Um, People can choose to do that. And obviously, that doesn't have anything to do with me, it has to do with them. But there was a time that that would have absolutely devastated me. I would have been filled with so much shame and doubt that, like, I probably would have wanted to kill myself. And I'm not kidding. I'm not being dramatic about that. And this person actually suggested that, which just clearly you need a lot of help that I'm not going to be able to give you. Um, Nor would I really want to if you're not willing to show up in a vulnerable and courageous way. Um, but literally, there was a time that that would have absolutely devastated me. I would have doubted everything about myself. But getting back to that whole idea of healing and everything, it doesn't bother me. The only thing that bothers me about it is the impact that it might be having on any of you that are watching this, um, that are seeing those kinds of comments. That's the only way that it's affecting me now. It makes no difference to me because it's not because I believe in my worthiness. Even if I have doubts every once in a while, I know that this person's comments have nothing to do with me. I'm not taking it personally. And that is kind of the difference. And I'm addressing it because, first of all, whenever you're doing anything public, no matter what that looks like, it could be at your local school board meeting. Um, there are always going to be people who are threatened in some way, who are triggered in some way, um, assuming that you're not doing anything specifically to trigger them or intentionally to trigger them or whatever. And we have no control over that. We have absolutely no control over that. But when we are aware of how we are affected by things, then we do have the ability to manage how we react to it. And I can say that I'm not feeling hurt. I'm not feeling badly that this person is being the way that they are. Like I said, the only uncomfortable feeling that I have is the impact that it potentially might have on somebody else. And so please try to disregard any of those rude comments, and I'm trying to remove them as they're coming up. I don't have a problem with anybody disagreeing with me. You're welcome to disagree with me, and I'm happy to have a conversation, but I will not tolerate um, rudeness. Well, I will not tolerate disrespectful behavior. Even rudeness sometimes I'll tolerate um, in this kind of a setting, but I will not tolerate disrespectful behavior towards me or anybody else. Um, and I really just, what your issues are, and clearly you need more help than I'm able to ever give you. So, at least in this kind of a setting. So, best to you as you move on with your day. Um, Wendy, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way, and I know how hard it can be to get the right help. And while I may not be able to provide the direct one-on-one help that you need and deserve, um, please connect with a rape crisis center. Please do that. And I do offer one-on-one services. You're welcome to check out my website, go to Your Journey, and there's information there. And if it works for you, I'm happy to talk with you, but it may not. It doesn't, the details don't work for everybody. But you are welcome to join Courageous Journeys, the Facebook group, the free group. You're welcome to join us in Journey to Wholeness, where you will also get a lot of support. And that is a paid group, but you're welcome to join us there for support. But I will say that I think individual work is really important. If you're struggling that much, please reach out to a rape crisis center. Please, please, please do that. Does it mean that you'll be able to do a live YouTube if that's what you want to do? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's not about doing a live YouTube, it's about not having all the worry about what people think, or are you doing the right thing, or what if this happens, or what if that happens. Like, if you've watched many of my videos, I mess up all the time. My videos are not professional, they're not edited, but I can do that. And sometimes I wish I could do a retake or whatever, but it doesn't have that kind of impact on me. So if you want to do a live YouTube, if you want to get on stage somewhere, if you want to speak about your abuse, or if you want to go do some sort of beautiful humanitarian work somewhere in the world, whatever it is you want to do, you will feel that you are worthy of doing it and capable of doing it. And that is the mantra for the entire Journey to Wholeness course. I am worthy and capable of healing. And from that place, from that understanding and that level of healing, everything in your life is possible. Healthy relationships, feeling connected, going after the things that you want, allowing yourself to acknowledge the things that you want in your life, all that becomes accessible to you because you believe that you are worthy of it. And then you have the confidence to go after it. There truly was a time that I never would have been able to do this. Never. And if somebody had told me that I would be doing this right now, I honestly would have been hurt and probably a little pissed off, because I would have felt like they didn't know me at all. Because if they did, they certainly wouldn't be thinking that. But that is the reality. Believe it or not, I used to be so shy and introverted that I wouldn't even look at people. People that I went to high school with believed that I was stuck up, like conceited and full of myself, because I wouldn't look at them. When I learned that, I was completely shocked, because of course it wasn't that at all. It was the complete opposite. I hated myself so much that I couldn't look at anybody, because if somebody looked at me, then they would see all the damage. They would see all the shame that I carried around. They would see what I believed to be the truth of who I was. So I could never look at somebody in the eye. And they thought it was something completely different. But now I can. Even if I don't agree with somebody, even if somebody is angry at me, or I'm angry at somebody else, that's the difference. And that's what healing is. And if you think about it, in the world, there are a lot of people who can't do that, regardless of their abuse history or whether they've never been abused at all, because we're all wounded and we all have some healing that we need to do. And that's why I talk about healing from abuse specifically, but why I also talk about the fact that we're all wounded, no matter what our histories are, and that we all need to be able to understand what those wounds are so that we can actually heal them. Because whether it's being on YouTube or telling somebody that you love them, asking somebody out, going after the job that you want, taking on that hobby that you're not sure you'd actually be able to do, whatever it is, that's what I want for people. I want people to live their lives from their truth and not from all the fears that they're holding on to. And you are deserving of that. Each and every one of you is deserving of that. Thank you, Jack. And you are inspiring to me. And I honestly mean that. And I've said this before. In fact, I just shared something here on YouTube, actually in the community part, that I think I don't remember exactly how I said it, but like your courage, maybe, or your vulnerability, I don't remember exactly how I said it, is my inspiration. And it is. I've been on here for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, because of the vulnerability and the courage that each and every one of you who is sharing appropriately, um, because you're sharing, because you're connecting. And it inspires me. It literally energizes me. Like I feel excited. I feel inspired. I feel emotional at times, which I'm starting to feel now. Um, it inspires me to continue to do this. So you, each and every one of you, is my inspiration to do this and to continue to share and to speak and to share more of myself. Like I've shared a lot of myself, but to continue to share more of myself, because I know that that's one of the things that helps you feel inspired, to know that I've struggled, to know what that's looked like in my life and how I've worked through that and continue to work through it at times. It truly is an inspiration to me. Um, it truly is my pleasure. I laugh at myself all the time. And that's something that's different too. I never would have been able to laugh at myself before. In fact, I didn't. Instead of laughing at myself, I felt so much shame. I felt so much shame, but now I do. And it's such an incredible feeling to be able to laugh at yourself, and not from a protective place, like using humor as a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism, but to laugh at myself from a place of full understanding of being um, like just messing up, or like not finding words, because that's something I struggle with quite a bit. Um, Whatever it is, being able to laugh at yourself is such a freeing, going back to that idea of freedom, it is such a freeing experience to be able to laugh at yourself. And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of healing to be able to really get there. Uh, yes. And also, and you just said something here, little missteps, like being able to see them as missteps or mistakes and not seeing them as failures or something to be ashamed of. That's part of this healing as well. Yes, Sharia, it is about ignorance for sure. Um, yeah, and I will. I think I can actually go back and go through some of those and maybe block some people. Um, Thank you, Benji, for being here. Truly, I appreciate you being here and sharing. And I know that you've commented on quite a few other videos as well, and I really appreciate that. The more every time somebody comments, whether it's here on another video or whatever, just shares in general, I have no doubt that there are other people who see that, read that, and take something from it. Even if they don't acknowledge it, they take something from that, even if it's knowing that they're not alone. And that is incredibly powerful. And that's in part why connecting and sharing is so important for ourselves and also for other people. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And I so love, adore, and appreciate all of you. Um, yes, we all need to be seen. We are terrified of being seen, right? We are so terrified of being seen, even if it's not a conscious fear. We are terrified. And this is part of the difficulty of healing, because we're terrified, which holds us back from being seen, come up with all kinds of ways not to be seen. but it's also desperately what we desire, even if we're not conscious of it. We desperately, in our being, desire to be seen and connected. But talk about that push pull, right? And if we're not, if we don't have the appropriate support, we just keep pushing and pulling, and we never actually get anywhere. But we all have a fear of being seen, and we all have a need, a human need, to be seen and understood. And again, that's part of the reason why I'm talking so much about Journey to Wholeness in this group, because for many of you, whether you don't have a group available in your area or whatever the reason, or even a different group would likely cost quite a bit more, that this, I think, is going to be a really beautiful opportunity to have that type of support and connection with other people. And of course, selfishly, I would get to be a part of your journey for those few months at least. So, but we all need that. We all absolutely need that. Good, Denise. I'm so glad that you found them helpful. Yes, I can share a link right here. Wendy, thank you for asking. So this courageousjourneys.com is my website. So there's lots of different kinds of things there. But in particular, the things that I'm talking about today are under your journey. So in the menu up at the top, click on your journey. So I'll have a little bit of like information there, but you'll see four big boxes. So there's, I don't remember how I name it, but there's four big boxes. Like individual mentorship, maybe. I don't remember what the other ones are, but you can kind of peruse, just click explore, kind of take a look at those. But in particular, what I'm talking about here is there's, I think, healing tools might be one of them, and that has a meditation album and a Journey to Wholeness course. And that's kind of the overall course that I'm talking about here today. So you can find both of those things there. Individual mentorship is another one of those squares, and that is where you will find information about working with me individually, one on one, and for one session or a 6-month program, and also an individual retreat or a courageous intensive. So, all of that information is on my website under your journey. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and let me know. Um, so, to So just being a part of the live sessions has given you the courage to end an abusive marriage and get a job that you never thought you could attain. Oh my goodness, Denise, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And congratulations. Congratulations. Um, you're going to make me cry. I'm in this emotional place now. um, thank you, Denise. That really means a lot. My pleasure, Lupe, and I'm so glad to have you in our community. Yes. So we are all more connected on our sorry, we are all more connected in our humanness than you are thinking at this time. Yes. One of the things about abuse that is so impactful is that we separate ourselves from everybody else. And there's different reasons for that, but we feel very isolated. And so we tend to think that we are different in so many different ways than everybody else. We'll find so many ways that we're different from this person and that person and that person, no matter who those people are. And so we tend to see ourselves as being very different. And the idea of being able to see the connection, the connectedness that we experience as humans, as survivors, is so important for humanity's overall health, I think. So I love that you're a therapist on that. Um, I'm happy that you're a part of this community too. So I don't know. So I know that some of you have been on here like the majority of the time. And thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. I really appreciate you being here. Um, it really does mean a lot to me personally, and it certainly also means a lot to me um, professionally. Just doing this and sharing this, knowing that you feel connected to what I talk about and what I share. That again is the inspiration. So I really appreciate you all being here and for sharing so openly and vulnerably and connecting to one another. That is such an important part here too. Welcome. So I don't know your name, but you're new. So welcome to Courageous Journeys. Welcome to this beautiful, supportive, and loving community. So if you're new here, if you haven't seen the other 2.5 hours of this video, um, maybe just watch the first part and then some different parts throughout. Maybe catch some of my other videos. You'll get a better sense of who I am and what I do. And I've been talking actually about the course is not new, but I'm talking about a course that I offer, Journey to Wholeness for survivors, and a group that is just starting this week that I'm really looking forward to inviting people into and connecting with people inside that group. So all the information is here. There are a bunch of links. When this video is done, I will come back into the description and share some of the links that I mentioned in this video so that they're all in the description as well, so you can find those. So welcome. Ooh, Wendy, this is a little this is kind of complex because there's a lot of different pieces here that are just bring up a lot. I guess that there's a lot of different pieces here. So honestly, I think the best thing that I can suggest here is the support that I was talking about, the one-on-one support to help you with this. Because if you are now pregnant as a result of being hurt, you need a lot of support. You deserve a lot of support. This is something that is going to be incredibly impactful for you, and you really need support. So please, please, please reach out, whether it's somebody in private practice, whether it's a community agency in your area, or my first recommendation is almost always a rape crisis center. Please, please, please reach out and get the support that you need. And in having that support, you will discover the best way to share that information. The best way for you, what's going to be most beneficial to you to share that information. And of course, you'll have the really significant support of that one-on-one that will help you. Now, obviously, if you're supported in a community, that can be good, but I really, really strongly encourage you to have one-on-one support right now. Whatever, please, please, please do that. And I don't know, I actually don't think I have an opening right now for one-on-one. Um, but but if you're interested in working with me and that's available to you, then take a look at my website and look at that. And if that's an option for you, then let me know and we can maybe talk about that. Um, so, vulnerability in regards to struggle with intimacy in a relationship. This is something definitely that is a big issue in one way or another for almost everybody that's been abused. Um, is it something that's specifically addressed in the course? I wouldn't say that vulnerability around intimacy in a partnership specifically is addressed, but vulnerability overall and what's coming up for you in terms of where you're feeling vulnerable, that is a piece that we talk about specifically. And there's even well, I don't know if I should say this or not, but there's a little extra bonus in that week's lesson um, that that could be that is tailored to everybody's specific circumstances that they're in at that time. So do I address that specifically? I do not. Um, But everything that we're talking about throughout the course, for everybody, depending on what's going on with you at that particular time, you're going to kind of translate that into kind of what's going on with you, what your current struggle is or whatever. So I hope that makes sense. Um, so not specifically addressed, like there's not a whole lesson on intimacy or sexual relationships, but that's a piece that comes up. And certainly in a group setting, that is definitely something I would anticipate will be coming up at some point or another, at least once or twice. Um, well, I'm just glad that you showed up, Lindsay. I would love for you to join us on the next retreat, Sharia. So, for those of you who are maybe a little bit newer to me, I offer small group retreats that are like the thing that just fills me up in a way that I didn't know was possible. All my work fills me up, but there's something just so incredible about sitting with people. And right now, my retreats are only for women because I don't have enough men that would be interested in doing it. Though I would love to be able to do that. But there's just something so magical about the retreats. I can't even necessarily put it into words, but I would love to have you join us, Sharia. So I hope that we can make that happen. Well, I would love to have you in the course. So it's available. You can sign up. Like it's just there. You can sign up, and immediately you'll get an email and some information, and we'll get started. And next week, so today is when the official group started, or the group officially started, I guess I should say. Um, but next week will be the actual Q&A, the live Q&A for the first lesson. So this week there's a bonus aspect, I guess, lesson called Getting Started. And so that's what you get immediately. And then you'll also get Taking Root immediately, or relatively immediately. You should get it today, or the day that you sign up, for sure. Shortly after you sign up, you should get that. But that's where we'll start next week with Taking Root. So I would love to have you join us inside the group. I'm happy you're spending your night with me too. I actually didn't expect to be still doing this at this time either. Fortunately, I didn't have any other clients scheduled for the night. Yes, a very vulnerable question. I think I understood what you were saying. It is. It's a very vulnerable thing to be here at all, honestly. It truly is. To actually be writing anything, acknowledging that you're even here listening to this is incredibly vulnerable. Uh, The course that I'm talking about is USD, $187 for the course. There's also an option to do 2 payments of $99 if that works better for you. And again, whether if you're watching this a week from now, or you join a week from now or 10 weeks from now, whatever, you still get to come into the group, and the videos will be available to you. And of course, you'll be able to participate going forward from there. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. How do you sign up for it? Are you talking about the course? Let me go back to the link. I've shared this so many times, and I will share it. If you're watching this on replay or whatever, I will share links in the description again. So those will be there, but let me go ahead and share this as well. So this link that I'm sharing right now at 2 hours and 43 minutes into this, that is the link to sign up for Journey to Wholeness. So it has information on there about the course itself, and then you can sign up from there. And again, pretty immediately. So make sure you check your spam folder. You'll get an email welcoming you in and a link to getting started. You access everything on my website, so you do have to be logged into the website to access it. And then shortly after the first email, you'll get another email letting you know that that Taking Root, the first lesson, is ready for you. And next week is when we get it on there. And so if you join Journey to Wholeness, Again, I will share this link, but on Facebook, there is a group. It's called Journey to Wholeness. Um, and right now on the header, it says coming September 2019. That's the group that you want to join. So I will match names of people requesting to join to names of people who are signing up to Journey to Wholeness. And then there's a question or maybe a couple of questions, I don't remember. When you click to join the group in Facebook, you'll be asked a question or two. Please make sure you answer those. And then I will admit you into the group. So I did a live in there today. I'll be doing the Q&A lives. I'll be sharing posts and prompts and stuff like that to get you more kind of invested in a way into the course, but also just help you internalize all the pieces of the course. And of course, you'll be connecting with other survivors as well. So yes, I just shared that link. So Marissa, welcome. Thank you for joining. So a couple things. I don't know if you're a survivor, so I don't know if there's some of that that's going on there, but just kind of generally in this kind of situation. Now, obviously, I don't know your whole story. I don't know the family. I don't know, obviously there's far more that I don't know than I do know. Generally speaking, in that kind of a situation, what I would generally recommend is if it's really bad, maybe consider not going. And it's okay to not go if a situation is going to be harmful to you in some way. The other thing that I would recommend if you're going to go is just be really conscious about not being around the person, like really limiting the amount of time that you're with that person. And then after you're done with the experience, connect with somebody that you feel supported by, like doing something to really kind of move you out of that energy. And I love that you have lifelong sisters as well. Yes. There's just the retreats are amazing. Marissa, this is a huge issue. People may be upset with you. They may not understand. They may take it personally. So I don't know what kind of relationship you have with the people. I don't remember who you said the person was. So I don't know if the person having the baby is your sister-in-law or I don't know exactly what's going on there. But people may be upset with you. But and this is where healing is important because it's incredibly difficult to set those boundaries. It's incredibly difficult to take care of ourselves when we have those fears or when we have people who are not supportive of us taking care of ourselves. But generally speaking, well, I don't even know that I would say generally. I think pretty much all the time, you need to take care of yourself. And if a situation is not good for you, then taking care of yourself means not subjecting yourself to that situation or that person. Now, obviously, there's a lot of nuances and other things, potentially here, but generally, that is a very true and accurate statement. So if it's really not a good situation for you, then you can work through with support. You can work through any guilt that you might feel about people being upset with you. I get it, Amanda, and I think other people will get it too. You are the person that you've always been, but the person that you showed up as before was showing up as a person filled with unworthiness, anxiety, and fear, and a mask. And as you heal, you become more of yourself. So I don't know if that's necessarily exactly what you were trying to say, but that's the reality of all of this. Lindsay, so those are the only two options that I have in terms of payment plan. So paying in full or paying over 2 months of the $99, you are a survivor. So Marissa, there's probably so your concern about people being upset with you is certainly about the shower and those people, but the reality is it's probably even deeper than that, which is why it's so difficult to set that boundary and actually take care of yourself. Um, and that's the importance of being able to heal, really. And so much of the healing that people do often is is kind of surface healing. It's dealing with feelings. It's dealing with like specific goals. It's talking about things or whatever. But the healing is way more than just that. And so one of the things that I've recognized is that a lot of people have done a lot of work on healing over the years, even if they didn't know that they needed to heal from sexual abuse specifically, but they've been to therapy or whatever. They've done a lot of self-development work, but they find that they still struggle with a lot of the same things, or maybe new things even, but they still struggle a lot. And the reason for that isn't because they're not capable or because they're weak or whatever. The reason for that is because so much of the work that people do, even therapists, work with therapists quite often, is not doing the work of actually healing the original wounding. And that's why I talk about this stuff, because we have to be able to do the work of the original wounding. We have to be able to understand the depth and the breadth of the original wounding so that we can heal that, because otherwise we're just putting band-aids on all of the ways that it's showing up in our life. And that's what I talk about, and that's what I do. So, so maybe you have a therapist, maybe that if you do have a therapist, absolutely, please talk about that. And that's something that if you're working with somebody, or even if you did the Journey to Wholeness course and we're in the group, that's something that you could have support around. Because if you don't put yourself in a situation that is going to be hurtful to you, yeah, you're going to struggle with feeling guilty because these people are going to be mad at you or whatever. But the harm that comes from being around somebody that's hurtful to you, the impact of that is typically going to be deeper and harder, not necessarily harder, but more complicated to heal than dealing with the present difficulty of people being mad at you. And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that stuff can be worked through easier with support, with professional support, than the hurt that is triggered by that person, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's something that comes up a lot in the work that I do with people, quite often, actually. You don't have to share with your family. You absolutely do not have to share with your family now or potentially ever, in order to heal. And I think I can say that that's true kind of across the board. Now there may be some nuanced situations that maybe there could be a caveat to that, but it's not necessary to share with anybody in particular in order to be able to heal. But it is necessary to be able to share with somebody that is without a doubt. I do know that. It is never too late to be what you might have been. One of my favorite all-time quotes, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that. When I first started my practice, I had that on my website. I had it on my business cards. I had it everywhere. It's never too late to become what you might have been. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that quote. Love it, love it, love it. How do you learn to not freeze in a situation? Practice, lots of practice, and the reality is lots of healing. And again, we all need support in order to be able to heal. But the fight, flight, or freeze response is an automatic response. And in order to change that, we have to do a certain level of healing, and we have to have a certain level of, or a certain amount of practice for our bodies to feel safe and not go into that automatic self-protective survival mode. I wish there wasn't a simple answer to that, or an easy, quick answer to that, but there's not. I will say that being able to recognize that you're freezing or that you're reacting in any particular way, that that you respond in a certain way, that just that awareness actually is really important and can go a long way. Uh, so feel good about that. Is it normal to feel scared that maybe a partner or somebody that you care about might hurt you? Is it normal? Yes, it is normal. Is it healthy? No. But there's a big difference quite often between what is healthy and what is normal. Because the reality is we are all wounded and we all struggle. So what is normal is often not necessarily healthy. um, so is it normal for that to happen? It is. But we don't want that, right? Part of healing, part of the freedom is about not fearing all the time, of allowing ourselves to be held, allowing ourselves to be supported and loved without fear of hurt. And that takes a lot of healing to get there. I'm sorry. I saw part of a comment and I'll get to it in a second. Hi, Naomi. Welcome. When do you go on live? Is there a certain day you do live? Thank you for being here and asking the question. On YouTube right now, there is not a specific day that I go live. And what I'm here talking about today is inviting people into a course that I'm doing where I will be going in live regularly for the next few months. In this course on healing from sexual abuse. So I don't currently do live videos regularly on YouTube, but I do share videos fairly frequently. But I also do lives on my Courageous Journeys Facebook page, which is an open page. That's not a group or anything that you have to join. It's just an open Facebook page. I do lives there as well. So you can check me out on Facebook too. But if you are a survivor and are interested in joining Journey to Wholeness, I've talked about it extensively in this video, and there are links already shared, and I will share links again when this video is done, and I can go back in and edit the description. I'll share all the links for Journey to Wholeness. But Journey to Wholeness, I will be doing live Q&As regularly and showing up inside the group and supporting and participating in all of that as well. But welcome, glad to have you here. I should have a snack. That's what I left about. I love to give you a drink. I do have a drink, and I did take one a little bit ago. Um, I'm eating right now. Yeah, we have been on here like 3 hours. This might be, you know what? I think it might actually cut off at 3 hours. So I want to quickly wrap up because I think this may have happened once before. I'm not entirely sure. I actually have more people on here now than I did earlier. Thank you all so much for being here. And some of you have been on here for quite some time too. Um, my pleasure, Marissa. Thank you for being here, Denise. Good night. Ready? Oh, I love this. I am ready to reclaim my power. Yes. Love that. Yes, absolutely. For everybody listening to this, reclaim your power, reclaim your truth, reclaim the truth of who you have always been. You may not be able to see the truth of who you are, but who you are, your strength, your courage, your goodness, your worthiness, it's always been inside of you. Never for one moment has it not been there. You just haven't been able to connect to it because you believe all these other things that are not true about who you are. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me. I would love to be able to connect with you further in Journey to Wholeness or in the Courageous Warrior group, on my Courageous Journeys page, wherever, whenever. I am so grateful to all of you for being here, and I will look forward to connecting with you further. Have a beautiful rest of your evening or day wherever you are in the world. If you're watching this on replay, I'd love for you to let me know that you're watching it on replay. If you've got questions about Journey to Wholeness, please share them. I am happy to answer them, and I would love to connect with you inside the Journey to Wholeness course and group. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Bye. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Thank you, Benji. You've been here for a while too. Thank you so much for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your night, everybody. Okay, I have to find the button to end this. Bye.